got the urge to do another video.
This episode is going to be about leaving the cult and leaving the ICGJC pretty much, and which direction you're going to go from there. So leaving this cult, what's going to happen is you're going to have people that will remain in the belief that they're still an Hebrew Israelite. Pretty much they're going to keep that identity, which is an identity that was given to them by the cult. Now the doctrine itself, we know it stretches beyond the cult. We know that with religion, whenever you have a doctrine that comes out and gets popular, becomes popular and starts to grow, you're going to have splinter groups come out of the group, and then you'll have splinter groups from splinter groups, where over time it's going to be hard for you to discern where everything got started. But for those that don't know the history of the Hebrew Israelite doctrine, what is known as today, more particularly the One West Hebrew Israelites, we know that from One West 125th Street is where the doctrine of the 12 tribes break down, where they tell you that Judah is the tribe of, or that the tribe of Judah are the African Americans, the tribe of Simeon are the Dominicans. They tell you that the tribe of Issachar are the Mexicans. So this doctrine actually came from Ariyah. We know it came from Ariyah. It was based on interpretations of scriptures and correlating that with historic events, and some of the stuff comes from pseudo teachings. You can go into the history of where Ariyah gets this information from when he starts breaking this stuff down. There's not much video, and there's not much that you can find out there, how they came to these 12 conclusions, which are the 12 tribes. There's 12 individual claims, pretty much. So going off of an interpretation of a scripture and then trying to find a correlation with some historic event, it's not a reliable method to come to those conclusions, because there's been many people and many tribes in history that you can find, that you can interpret to fit these scriptures, so-called prophecies. With the breakdown of Levi and Simeon, they say that Levi and Simeon are brethren, and that these are the Dominicans and the Haitians, but they're already starting with a presupposition that the Dominicans are the tribe of Simeon and Haitians are the tribe of Levi. So they put that in your head first, and then they try to find some type of correlation between the two. But there's no way to conclusively say that because of this is this. There's no real testing, there's no model, there's no way that you can prove it or disprove it. It's what's called an unfalsifiable claim. Now sometimes there are situations, depending on the claims, where you can disprove it. So just to touch on that, I'm going to be doing more videos on the 12 tribes. But we know that when people leave this cult, we're going to have some that are going to continue to take this doctrine, which they got from the ICGJC, and go and keep moving forward with the doctrine and possibly start their own, cult or their own organization. Now you're going to have some that will leave the ICGJC and will also come to the conclusion that the breakdown of them being an Israelite is incorrect, but they might still hold on to the beliefs and to the teachings of the Bible. They might still call themselves a Christian. It depends. There's different ways that you can go. Now there's also another direction that they tend to go, which is a more logical direction, I would say, where they'll drop the Bible in its entirety and won't hold to any real doctrines, of the Bible. They'll know the truth of the Bible, which the truth of the Bible is that it's just another religious book with a lot of legends and myths that was a compilation over years. For example, the story of the flood is it's pretty much known that it's a recycled story over time, that they reinterpreted and retranslated it into something else, but it did come from ancient stories of local floods. And you can find, for example, the Epic of Gilgamesh is a good history to let you know that the flood story in the Bible actually is not an original story. It comes from somewhere else. Now, this doesn't mean that there's any truth to it. It just means that it's a story that people would teach to, or a story that people will tell to teach something, to get some type of understanding from, which was the way that people used to teach back then. And but that just dealing with the flood, there's much more in the scriptures that you can find elsewhere. There's a lot of knowledge that comes from the Code of Hammurabi, because the Israelites, what's taught in universities, what's taught from scholars, what's known is that the Israelites came from the Canaanites, and the Canaanites came from what's known as Sumer or and they got a lot of the doctrines and their beliefs from that location. So you can study the Sumerians, you can read up on that. A lot of the wisdom and information that the Hebrew Israelites taught was actually recycled, handed down from the Sumerians. And it's no secret. And you can even look at some of the history in a town called Ugarit, ancient city called Ugarit, and you see that a lot of the beliefs that the Israelites held, ancient Israelites, was very similar to the people of Ugarit, and they existed before the Hebrew Israelites. So you have people that will come to that conclusion, to where they probably won't hold to the beliefs of the Bible, but they'll still believe that there is a higher power or a God. Now, in my situation, and this is the minority, I'm in the minority where we come to the conclusion where we don't believe that there is a God or a creator. We deny the Bible. We know that the Bible is just another book, and with various claims and stories and hearsay, and it's unreliable. Even if it's an eyewitness account, eyewitness accounts are still very unreliable. Now, in my situation, I came to the conclusion that I have no good reason to believe that there is a higher power or a creator that set everything off, because there's no evidence to support that belief. So when I talk to some of these ex-members that are now coming out, and they start to ask me, why don't you believe in the creator? 'Cause a lot of them, their reaction to that is, as if I just told them that I killed somebody or something. There's a stigma against non-believers, just like there's a stigma against homosexuals. There's a stigma against lesbians in the Bible, or in society, because of the Bible and various religious books. There's a stigma against atheists, just like there's a stigma against them. So when you hear something, right away you're gonna get a negative, feeling in your mind. You're gonna start thinking all negative things, because to you it's so foreign, and it's so foreign to some of these people that people assume that the reason why I don't believe any longer is because I was involved in this, ICGJC, Israelite Church of God in Jesus Christ cult. And they think that because of my experience with this cult, that that's left such a bad taste in my mouth that I can no longer just believe in a God, and I hate God because of that. That's not the case. And it's a little insulting that people want to assume that, because it kind of suggests that I haven't done my research, like I haven't really gone through the steps and logically came to this conclusion. But I want to assure everybody out there that the conclusions that I came to was all based on logic, and I have gone through the steps of scrutinizing the claims, all the claims. I'm a person that reads a lot. I don't just read anything. I read a lot of books dealing with critical thinking, logical fallacies. That's what helped me come to the conclusions that I've come to, because all the claims and all the reasons behind why people believe in a God, you can all debunk it and disconfirm it easily just by using logic, which is going to be part of my future videos and some series that I plan to do for my channel. Now, for those that assume that the reason why I don't believe any longer is probably because I was in a traumatic situation, which I understand why people would assume that, because there are a few people that I know personally that, because they went through this traumatic experience, they might still believe in a God, but they don't want to talk about the experience. They don't even want to go back to the scriptures or to the Bible to disconfirm what they used to believe. They don't even care to disconfirm what they used to believe. But to me, it actually mattered, and I did care, and I did go back and go through the steps of disconfirming what I was taught, and going through logical steps to show that there's no reason for me to believe this. So I went through that. I had no problem going through that. It wasn't such a traumatic experience to where I can't even deal with it or talk about it anymore. But that's just me personally speaking from my situation, from my experience. That I didn't go through that, so I didn't have that experience. But some people have, and I understand why people might assume that the reason why I don't believe anymore is because the entire experience that I went through left a bad taste in my mouth, and I just don't want to deal with it. I'm actually open to talking about it, and I'm open to having my mind changed, but I want to start from the neutral position, which is where everybody should start with. But what you realize is that believers will start with assumptions and presuppositions, and then they want you to disprove what they already believe, as if they have come to these conclusions for good reasons. And when you scrutinize and really question them why they believe what they believe, you see that it's easily debunked. And that's what I went through. I went through the logical steps. So, I just want to put that out there because, as an atheist, as a non-believer who used to be an Israelite, I know the doctrines, I know the teachings, and I've actually gone through to where I've come to the conclusion that there is no good reason to believe in the claims that they put out. And to go further with some of the claims that they put out, you could even disconfirm it and debunk it. Like the claim that the Seminole Indians are the tribe of Reuben, but yet they separate the tribe of Reuben from the tribe of Gad and say that the tribe of Gad are the North American Indians. That's easily debunked because the Seminole Indians are North American Indians. They came from the same tribes that the North American Indians came from. There was never a division. It wasn't a division until the 1700s with the Seminole Indians. So that claim is easily debunked. Now the claims of there being some type of higher power or a creator that started everything, that set everything off, is an unconfirmed claim. It's a claim that can't be tested. So that's what's called an unfalsifiable claim. You can't test it. You can't prove it false or true, and you shouldn't have to prove it false. The person that makes the claim has the burden to prove it true. So if you say that something is, you have the burden to prove that something is. I shouldn't have to disconfirm it before I don't believe it. If you can't prove it true, the neutral position is to not believe and to say that I have no reason to believe. I'm unconvinced. So I wanted to explain that, and I want to open up my email. I'm going to send out my email address. I've put it out in the past, but because I'm open to speaking to people about it, and I know people are wondering why I've come to these conclusions, and we can go through it. I'm not afraid to talk about it, and you should be open to talking about it too. If you have a belief there should be no reason for you to be scared to talk about it or be unwilling to talk about it, because I think the reason why some people are is because they are scared. They're scared that they're going to be exposed, and they're going to, it's going to come out that their beliefs are unjustified. Because people just want to believe what they want to believe. And I realize that that's what it comes down to. People want to feel comfort, people want to feel comforted. And that's what the Bible does. It comforts them. It makes them feel safe. It creates this entire worldview that explains, which doesn't really explain stuff. It's a simple explanation that, God did it. God will take care of it. Have faith. And it makes people feel good because it's a overgeneralization. It simplifies this complex world that we live in. And it's, this world that we live in could be a little scary sometimes because we don't know what's going to happen. We never know what we're going to wake up to. We never know what's going to happen tomorrow. But what the Bible does and what the belief in God does is comfort people to where they feel that regardless of what happens, God got me and everything is going to be all right. And I can understand why people come to those beliefs, but in my situation, I don't need that. I don't need that belief to feel comfortable. I'm comfortable with knowing the truth and people telling me about, what's the reality of things rather than giving me some false hope. And that's why I've come to the conclusions that I've come to. This is going to be just the beginning of some of my future videos going into why I no longer believe in some of these claims, pretty much. So stay tuned, and I'll be back with some more videos. Have a good day. Peace.
Video, I found a very important topic.